Yeah, welcome back. There's Marco D'Amico. I am Shaun Starr. New episodes drop on youtube.com Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. You can support us by supporting our sponsors, littlebearonline.com, 10% off your first order. Use that code ORDER1. They also have a subscription model, so you don't have to worry about, oh my God, I forgot to pick up the cat food. I forgot to pick up the dog food. Nope. Little Bear Online has the memory locked and loaded. You'll forget about it. So, man, this is a great convenient service. Thank you. Thank you, Shaun Starr. Thank you, Marco D'Amico, for making my pet's life more comfortable. We all thank Little Bear Online for supporting the channel. Get 10% off that first order and specials all August long. I know, what is it, the 27th today? So we're winding down the end of August. Capitalize on 15, 20% in-stock items at littlebearonline.com. Patrik Laine and the Montreal Canadiens. Looks like they're very comfortable. Like, you and I have spent episodes this summer talking about how legitimately different the culture in the room is, with the amount of players hanging around the summer months, working at the sports complex in Brossard. And Patrik Laine was there. Patrik Laine's all over the city. As a matter of fact, he was in the West Island last week, and Anthony Martineau of TVA Sports caught up with him and asked him a pretty simple question about how he's liking life in Montreal and about his future here, and said, yep, he wants to stay here. What do you think your educated guess is about the Habs coaching staff and front office and their desire to have a guy who was prorated to score over 30 goals in a full season and
Mhm.
his future being locked up in Montreal? What do you think the inner workings of the Canadiens are feeling about that today?
Well, it all depends on role. It all depends on what you want from a player, right? So I think that the issue with the Canadians is that Patrik Laine was basically like significantly relied upon on the second line to kind of produce, and he was not really it was not an ideal situation for him last season. And again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? There were some performances that left you just shaking your head, right? And
Yeah.
some of those cannot be chalked up to inexcusable, excusable factors. Some of them is just plain, brain farts, hockey laziness, you name it. And I
Yeah.
think he's pretty aware of that. But you have to factor in that last summer, Patrik Laine did not touch the ice before training camp. You have to factor in that Patrik Laine last year, after that game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, initially was ruled out for the season and then got a second opinion.
Yeah.
You have to also factor in that, when that does happen to you, you reach a point where you get gassed because that man did not play a lot of hockey over the last 3-4 years, right?
Mhm.
So you get gassed. You don't have your feet following you, and already his feet, on average are a little heavy. So there is a significant amount of physical toll that leads me to believe that a full summer of training and really hitting the ground running at training camp, with health, this is a player that could be extremely valuable in a top nine in a more sheltered role than perhaps what he was given last year due to the Canadians' lack of depth. I think going to get a guy like Zachary Bolduc, who would be destined to play on a second line and play
Yeah.
that gritty style, allows the Canadians to eventually do what they've planned to do from the very get go, and that's have three offensive lines. And I think having a guy like Patrik Laine sheltered on a third line eventually with a responsible third line center and other wingers coming up throughout the organization. We have the Canadians, we've seen them, go out and draft guys that could make sense in those kinds of roles that could play the duality, right? No more do championship teams have the prototypical third checking line, right? We saw the Florida Panthers third line basically run roughshod on the Oilers, and that was Brad Marchand, Anton Lundell, and you name it in terms of whoever finished or closed up that line. But the
Mhm.
nucleus were guys that could play the guys that could play hard offensively as well. And so the way that I see it is such. I don't think Patrik Laine is in the position to require or to demand anywhere near the salary that he's earning right now. Right? 8.7 million, I think the Canadians would walk from that. But if his desire to stay in the city and the mental benefit and the cultural benefit that it brings him to play for the Canadians is as strong as he is indicating, then there is potential for a hometown discount. There is potential for a deal that could potentially, be on the shorter term, right? That would be team friendly enough where it would be able to keep him on the team
Yep.
and allow the Canadiens to further build out their top six. And to me, that is interesting because eventually, when the Canadiens become more of a playoff contender, having that power play presence on your
Huge.
second wave by that point is
Correct.
massive. Having two dangerous waves is the blueprint to getting your special teams over that 100% hump. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's combining your penalty kill percentage with your power play percentage. If you are over 100% when you combine both, then
Yep.
you are in business. And the
Correct.
Canadiens haven't been in business for a while. So this is why I say I would be interested to see, because you're seeing guys signing friendlier deals coming out of situations where they absolutely want to stick around, right? Like you
Yep.
saw what happened in Florida this year, where Aaron Ekblad could have earned north of $8 million on the open market, signed for what, 6.1, right? And he did that because wants to three-peat, the culture, wants to stay in Florida. And so that does impact a lot. So if the Canadiens offer some level of security in exchange for a lower AAV, that could make a little bit of sense to me, because I just don't feel like the Canadiens have wingers in the system outside of
Exactly.
potentially Zorovsky that could be impactful in that kind of a situation within the next year or two or three. They have a lot of prospects that could play on a third line, but no one that has the shooting ability of a Patrik Laine. I feel like there's maybe 10 players in the league that have that. So if he's willing to stay on a discounted rate, then you have to have that conversation.
One of the benefits about getting older is understanding that things don't need to go at hyper speed all of the time. Like, I'll speak for myself. I'm a completely different person today than I was when I was 25 years old, right?
Agreed.
And so I'll apply that to Patrik Laine, who's gone through it, and now here he is on the other side, and he talks a very good game. And the better part to me is the give a shit meter is very significant. You see him. I mean, he's working with Demidov. Why? I'm going to choose to go. He's working this summer all the time, not because he's in a contract year and is hoping to go from over 8 million to becoming an $11 million player and then taking the first jet out of here. I don't think so. I think this is an older player who's realized, you know what? Peace of mind is very important. Playing on a very good up and coming team like the Canadiens, maybe playing with Demidov has got this guy really going. I think he's very legitimate. I think he's very genuine when he tells Anthony Martineau and others that he wants to stay here. I believe him, because I'm going to reiterate this. It's so different. The culture, the players,
Yeah.
the belief is stronger than it's been when Carey Price was here and they built the sports practice facility in Brossard. When that was built, I remember the organization, doing a good sell job of, man, this is going to attract a bounty of players that they're going to be so well taken care of in a first class way. I think we've gotten away from that, and now all the talking is being done by the new wave of players. And outside
Mhm.
of Zachary Bolduc, man, like if you're Patrik Laine, you're looking over your shoulder saying, who's pressing me? Who's pressing me? I think it's a great opportunity in a layered way for him to be comfortable, get paid, and ultimately win. That's how I see
Yeah,
this working out for him.
yeah, and working out with Ivan Demidov, I think, is more coincidence than anything else, because they're
Really?
both on the ice every day, right?
I know, but to me,
I,
it's
I
I
don't
don't I
think,
think it's deliberate. I think it's the opposite of that. I think it's guys that want to start October, bro. Like it's
yeah,
paid for and
that's
they're
the
rolling.
coincidence.
Yeah,
That's the coincidence, is that they're both are guys that have a lot to prove. Very similar situations. In fact, if you factor in last season, Ivan Demidov did not train at all last season because of an ankle injury, and then boom, right into the KHL preseason, right? So
right.
he didn't get a summer of training like he is getting this summer. So again, these two guys are guys that were deprived of preparation, key preparation to allow them to hit the ground running in a season, despite the fact that no training at all still led Demidov to having an historical season in the KHL.
Right.
To me, these guys understand what it's like to go without. And so they're taking full advantage of this season to get ready. And that is kind of the idea for me that has been percolating for a while, is that Patrik Laine has not taken this summer for granted in any way, shape, or form.
Agreed.
He knows there's a contract year coming. And to me, and you're going to see some wicked contracts signed over the next year in terms of guys just like breaking bank. If the priority is more security than money, I think that it makes a ton of sense. And so, we talked about like the culture, and that is massive. It is. You saw a guy like Noah Dobson take less when he found out he was coming to Montreal, right? Initially was asking for north of $10 million, then it became $10 million. And then when it was Montreal, he took 9.5, despite it being in a higher tax bracket than, say, a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets in Ohio, right? So to me, that was telling. The fact that you actually lowered a little bit your salary demands because you went to a place you wanted to go. And I think that is a massive message being sent across the team. And it speaks to the culture that's being built there. So I feel like Laine would be in the same kind of situation, a 5-year deal, just north of 5 million, 6 million is where I'm thinking. And you got to think that that's like 6 million is going to be like borderline second line money, right? Like it's almost, you're almost getting into third line money at that point.
Well, true,
because the cap is going up so quickly.
But the interesting part, like, you touched on this, kind of in the opener, right? About Laine and his future tied to Montreal is outside of, I mean, the guy scores goals. He was born to score goals in the NHL.
Premium.
End of story, right? But beyond that, when Martin St. Louis and his coaching staff evaluates this guy on a game to game, right? And there was a little bit of vocal turbulence, nothing that hurt feelings or anything else, just grown men playing professional hockey. Not everything is perfect.
My dude played for Paul Maurice. I think he's going to be okay.
Correct. And and he's also Finnish. These aren't the lilies here, but when it comes to what else he needs to do in order for this team to stay attracted to Patrik Laine. And I think the fan base is, because if you're of a certain age, you really don't know goal scorers. You really don't know goal scorers, like consistent goal scorers on this team. There have been sporadic ones that have shown up, but consistently, you're going to pay for that. But other than his ability to bury the puck on the power play, I mean, does his foot speed, does his hockey sense, his vision, like all of that has to go up a couple of rungs for the Canadiens to, like, you can love a guy, but are you going to fall in love? And I think there's still some upgrades for the Canadiens to fall in love with Patrik Laine, right? You don't want to overpay for a guy that may peter out to be a third line player and a specialist.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you need those specialists, right? And that's kind of my thing.
I agree.
Bottom 6 players have to have a role, in my honest opinion, to be considered valuable. There's obviously going to be, a group of them that are mainly 5-on-5 players, right? Like we've seen in the past. But ideally, if you're in a third line role, either you're really good at 5-on-5 or you are a role player of some kind. So I feel like if this is a guy that can help elevate your second power play wave to drive the opposition crazy, to force them to have to split their defensive units a little bit more equitably, and that creates opportunity for one wave like the other, that strategy alone will help you win. Patrik Laine is going to score goals on the power play, whether you want him or not. It's going to happen. And so even if he pots 20, 25, if you're in that 5 to 6 mil range, that's right in the money. And to me, I think that is, where the Canadiens would kind of be looking at it from their perspective. And so if Laine is interested in staying, and he has a good, strong season, you're going to have to reevaluate at that point. But I feel like, and I will say this, and this is not me like blowing the team's horn, I simply feel like I don't think everyone saw the real Patrik Laine last season. My 2 cents. I feel like you saw the lower rung of what he can do. And I am very interested to see what he can do with a full year of a full summer of training and a year of health.
And who's centering that line? We're not getting into it. To be determined what's going to happen there. What's going to happen?
I'm like the baby that walks into a room, goes, and walks away.
That was pretty good. We
look similar.
Yeah. That's Marco D'Amico. Follow him at MN D'Amico. Don't forget, new episodes drop right here on youtube.com weekdays at 10 a.m. We're talking about expectations and the future around Patrik Laine. Tomorrow, this guy's future is locked in for the Montreal Canadiens, but the expectations, depending on who you talk to, what do you think about the ceiling for our topic tomorrow on this Montreal Canadiens player? We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Marco D'Amico at MN D'Amico on all your favorite socials, and support us by supporting our sponsors at littlebearonline.com.